All right, we have a pack agenda, so let's start. Let's start with introductions. And I also want to know, what did you do when it's 105 like yesterday? What's your favorite activity? And Zoe Copiano, Director of Housing Stability here at Community Action. And it's funny, but because it's so cold in our office, that yesterday when I went to my car and it was 102, I just sit there and enjoy the heat for a little bit because it feels so good. Yeah, I just like to chill and do nothing. Go to the water, any lake. That's what I like to do. Unless to be nuts. Or I can popcorn. Megan.
Hi, Megan George, City of Tualatin. I think I mostly complain when it gets to that heat. That's probably my primary activity. Yeah, I mean, all of the same things you mentioned. If there's water, I'm there. But mostly I'm just complaining a bunch. I'll pick the next person, I guess. Rolanda. All right, Rolanda, do you want to go next?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were doing introductions. Rolanda Garcia, and I'm the ODHS District Manager for Child Welfare and Self-Sufficiency. And we're saying what we did yesterday. Is that what we said?
What is your favorite activity? What did you do when it's 105?
I feel like all I do is water my garden. Water in the morning, water at night. Anyway, that's been my task, to keep my vegetable garden a little alive.
Great. Well, I'm going. You can just.
Am I supposed to call on the next person?
Yes,
Sorry.
please. Yes.
Catherine, did you go already?
I didn't. I'm Catherine. She, her pronouns, program manager here in the Department of Housing Services. And my favorite thing to do when it's hot, if I'm not at work, is go be in water. I like to float down rivers. That's my most favorite thing. But since I have been working, I wear sweaters in the office because it's cold. And if I need to defrost, I have a little heater, or I walk over to Nicole's office, which is much warmer than mine for some reason, because HVAC. And how about you, Sia?
Sure. So Sia Lindstrom with City of Beaverton. I'm filling in for Jelaine Potter, who's on vacation right now and will probably be joining you in the future. Very good to see you all. I had a very my experience yesterday was similar. My office is so cold that when I walked outside, it felt good for all of about 2 minutes until it got too hot. But I think my favorite thing to do is to go home and stare at my smart thermostat, who tells me that we're having whatever those heat conservation or the cooling conservation events, and not to turn down the thermostat. And I try to resist making it colder at my house until the event is over. Does anybody else have those smart thermostats?
Yeah, same here. We helped out yesterday.
Yep, till like 8 o'clock last night. I'm like, oh, come on. Let's see, who next? How about, oh, Kiyomi, since you're new, let's welcome you in. Oh, and I'm not hearing you. Oh. Yeah, it said you were unmuted, but we weren't hearing you.
Maybe are you able to change the mic?
Anything?
There you go.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I accidentally kicked myself out and then came back to the meeting. Kiyomi, I am working at the City of Hillsborough Community Services Coordinator. If you remember Mandy, I am in that position, so trying to just make that connection. My favorite thing, usually it would be to go to the beach. So I'm from Bay Area, California, and I just moved here. So yesterday I was just unpacking, which was not very smart to do on a super hot day, but you know, my brain was all out of whack. So yeah. Sorry, I did not choose somebody. Nadia?
Hi. So what did I do? Well, basically it was it's a work day, so I was doing that. I was probably more tired and irritable, I felt, than usual. But over the weekend when it was so hot, we turned on the sprinklers so we could water the yard and the plants because they looked like they were dying, but also my kids could run through them, and that brought a little bit of cooling to everyone. And who hasn't gone yet? How about Lindsay?
Hi everyone, Lindsay Downin. I'm with New Narrative, she, her. Yesterday was a very busy work day. I'm doing a weird thing with my vacations this summer where it's like long weekends, and so it's like 3 days here, 4 days there, and I'm not even like midway through it, and I don't like that I did this. So yeah, just been staying very cold in offices and houses with AC, and yeah, slammed with work. It's not supposed to be like that during the summer. Not sure how that happened, but here we are. Marcia, I'll kick it over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marcia Hilly. I'm the executive director at Sequoia, she, her pronouns. I mainly complain or listen to people complain because I don't think our air is working very well right now, or it just had too much to compete with yesterday. I'm not sure, but anyway, we all survived, and we're fortunate that we can have air conditioning to complain about, because there's a lot of people who don't. So, oh, and let's see. I don't know who to pick it to. Shauna?
Hi, everyone. I'm Shauna Jepson, Oregon Department of Emergency Management. I work the recovery and the executive order. I work long-term recovery, so everything from individuals all the way up through the federal government is whom I work with. What I do this last week, what I did, I've been working 10 days straight in response to the heat and the fires around the state, but generally I'm on board with complaining. I'm on board with finding water, any bit of water, whether that's a sprinkler or a hose at my feet. And if I'm not doing that, I probably am feeling like I'm dying. I don't like the heat. I don't do well with the heat. I wither. I'm waiting for this to be done. And also, Catherine, I'm going to look at you for this. Is this an appropriate meeting for me to be on? I had the invite. I wasn't sure what it was about, but if you don't want me here, I don't need to be here. It's up to you guys. You can kick me off if you need to.
Shauna, you are always welcome. This is still our MAC space. So
Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome to join
Okay.
whenever you're free.
Great. Thank you. And did Jeremy go?
No, he hasn't.
Okay, I'm calling on Jeremy next.
Well, of course, I can't turn my camera on because I'm in my truck on my cell phone, and I have to turn that on in my settings. It doesn't let me. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy Taves, Executive Director for Open Door. Yeah, we just got through what a very interesting heat wave. So you can't see me other than the screen, but I'm Filipino, so I'm like Polynesian, Pacific Islander. I tan in the sun. But right now, with the heat that we went through, I look like a snake going through its new skin. So I'm shedding like crazy. I burned. I basically didn't follow my wife's advice and put sunscreen on, so I burned. But I like to try to find water. If I'm not in water, then I'm in an air conditioning office, which is my office because it's nice and cool in there, and I'm usually working. So next, Megan, did you go? Megan George? Okay. So is that
Yeah.
everyone?
I think Meredith
Meredith did it. Yeah.
and Jess.
Oh, Jess joined. Yep.
Just trying. I will add the Oregon sun is something. I didn't realize that when I moved here because I'm of South Asian descent. I did not expect to burn like in 15 minutes. Was out here first time.
I'll do a quick intro for myself. Hi, I'm Meredith Cook, she, her pronouns. I'm administrative assistant with the helping to run the Solutions Council meetings. And I am going to pass it off to Jess if you're able. I think she's also traveling, so.
Yeah, she said she's just listening,
Yep, right.
speaking.
That's it, Nadia. And Zoe.
All right, so, okay, the first item on the agenda is, and I hope that you guys have a chance to review the documents that Nadia sent. Is the Continuum of Care Program 23-24 racial equity data. So I think Catherine is going to speak about this.
Yes, hi. Okay, so this data, couple of things. One, we would be remiss if we didn't pause to give a shout out to Jeremy and the outreach team, PHC and Just Compassion, and all of our other street outreach teams, New Narrative street outreach team, for all of their work connecting people during the heat wave to cooling centers, cooling shelters, supplies, making sure folks were safe out there. So just taking a pause to give a big thanks to everybody for that work. And our city partners as well, who are with us all along the way. We received word today that it looks like our COC NOFO may be dropping as soon as Monday. And so for those of you who've been with this group for a while, you remember that this group consists of a significant portion of our former COC board, which has historically had that responsibility for a lot of our NOFO components. This piece here, this racial equity data, is part of our COC requirements that we have to report on in the NOFO. And this racial equity analysis data for each individual program is included in the rating and ranking, which you may remember you guys reviewed and approved a few months ago. So this is the breakdown of the racial equity data for the COC programs only. And we also shared with you last night the racial equity analysis for our SHS programs, which is a much broader, more robust report out and includes a much larger sample size. This data is specific to just our COC programs. We did take one out because it's doesn't fall into the other categories. And so that's our youth program, if we labeled our youth program, it would be very obvious which program data it is, and that's not our intent here. So breaking down our COC programs, all COC programs, our permanent supportive housing programs, which are primarily shelter plus care, and our rapid rehousing program. So we can see the racial equity, the racial equity analysis, so enrollment in comparison to our county population and county population in poverty. So this went out a while ago. I'm hoping folks had a chance to look at it. We you know, historically, the most of our participants for the COC programs are in the permanent supportive housing program. That's about 200 or so participants. That program requires chronic homelessness status documented by third party, and that it also includes a documented disability. And for a long time, our COC Shelter Plus Care program required all participants to have an SPMI, a severe and persistent mental illness. Many of the participants in that program have been in for several years, 7+ years. So there's a lot of legacy data that's included in this sample set. Which is why it looks pretty slightly different from our SHS data. Most importantly, though, we are looking to align our, you want to pull up the SHS data, Nadia? Thank you. So I'm hoping folks had a chance to look at this as well. Maybe I'll just pause for one moment and see, did anybody have any questions, thoughts, reflections that you wanted to share with the group?
I have a question.
Okay.
So we are analyzing the data of placements, right? And people that it's already either served with a placement in rapid rehousing or with Arla voucher or with prevention. But I don't know if we can also analyze people who are entering the system and the demographics of that. Like who's doing a phase 1, who's entering the system, and then comparing with this, which it will also give us a little bit of a demographic insight, you know, who's housing first, who's taking more time, etc.
That's great. That's a perfect segue. Actually, because what we're aiming for now, for this year, we needed to, we've been doing the SHS programs equity analysis. We've been doing the COC programs equity analysis separately at different times of the year in different ways. And as part of this one governance work that you all are an integral part of, we are moving to next year doing a single system-wide racial equity analysis. So that's exactly the question that I was going to ask is, when we get to that next year, what are some of those key points that you would like to see included in that analysis? So I'm hearing you say, Zoe, a comparison between who is entering the system versus who's getting enrolled in programs versus who's getting housed in programs. Does that sound right?
Right. Yeah. And who is waiting there for a long time? Huh?
Are there any other, well, I guess I'll just pause for one more second. Was there anything in the actual data that was presented that folks wanted to call out? Okay.
Catherine,
sorry.
see you.
I see.
See, no matter on Zoom, no matter how long you pause, it's never pausing long enough. The only other thing I was thinking about is once you see data like this, it of course leads to the next question about what are the barriers that are causing some of these disparities. And so, you know, the quantitative is great. And what is our process for then getting some of that qualitative analysis and follow-up that assesses barriers? And it really allows us to get to some solutions.
Great. Thank you, Sia. Any other points or comments that you'd like us to make sure that we include in a broader system level analysis next year? Okay,
I think the only thing, Catherine, I actually skimmed the data. I didn't have a chance to really get into real look at it. I was hoping we would do that today, which is what you're doing. But I was pretty actually impressed with the number of families that you served that actually are from considering our population and the percentage that you were able to really reach some of the families that are from some of those vulnerable populations. And I was pretty impressed with your percentages, actually. I just want to say that.
thanks, Rolanda.
Yeah, this is Marcia. I wanted to echo the same. I was pleasantly surprised that the numbers look as good as they do. So
Definitely been an intentional effort to make sure everybody who comes into these programs is coming through coordinated entry. So definitely an intentional effort to make sure our coordinated entry is accessible and equitable for folks.
It was really pleasant to see, like numbers, it's like, whoa, you're in the work but this is, yeah, to me, it's a success. And I know we have a lot more to do and populations to reach out. So now we can like target that and focus on that and the Asian population, where they are and what are those communities. Yeah, I was happy.
Thank you. I will just remind you, when we were looking a few months ago, when we were setting the priorities for the NOFO this year, you all did choose to include a preference for programs that would specifically focus on serving the Asian Pacific Islander population based on our previous year's equity analysis. So thank you for that as well. It continues to be an area with opportunity for improvement. Okay. Any other key things to keep in mind as we plan for next year's equity analysis? All right. Thank you. I think the other item attached to this was our work plan. Do I have that right, Zoe? So in our last
Yeah, and the speaking, sorry, with my mic muted. The next item is the OHCS MAC report.
Oh, I think we had a twofer in that first item. It was the equity data and the work plan. No?
No, but
Okay.
you can do the work plan and then we can do
Nope,
OHCS.
no, that's
MAC
okay. We
report.
can go right into the MAC report. Thank you. I don't have the agenda up in front of me. I don't know why that was a twofer in my brain. Do you guys have the MAC report? Right, I'll pull it up. Oh, you got it. Okay, thanks, Nadia. So as a reminder, we submit a monthly, can you zoom in a little bit, Nadia? Is there a way to show that figure? Thank you. And then maybe scroll up to the top. Great. So our we submit our monthly MAC report to the state as part of our role is in the EO response. The plans have shifted a little bit. We're no longer operating from that initial work plan that we created together, but we are still reporting out our progress here at the MAC group. The objectives are, that we've identified. We're transitioning our MAC activities to our performance evaluation technical subcommittee. That's here. And then what we're covering. And so that's complete. We are working on housing exit plans for our shelter long stayers. We've been talking about that here. We continue to be working on that and tracking our progress there. We have our annual work plan that's informed by our system performance measures. That's here, and it's been shared with the continuum of care, and we are sharing it here today. And then increasing our housing placement, so continuing to move towards making sure that our system is resulting in actual housing outcomes. And so we had 45 housing placements counted in May. And the challenges that we've identified have been people staying in shelter longer, and the impact that has system-wide, which is why that's one of our plan objectives to continue to work towards. Increased substance use and behavioral health challenges in the warmer weather, continuing to struggle with staff retention and professional development, and then connecting with households and vehicles. And then for our highlights, we shared some positive media coverage, and then just the continued progress in our case conferencing. And then our needs from the state have remained pretty similar, mostly focused on health system alignment and improving the processes of the systems for connecting individuals to healthcare. We've made good progress on that on the individual level through our healthcare case conferencing, just continuing to look for systems level alignment and smoother processes. We're getting very good at navigating them. It would be great if they were more navigable. So we send in this report every month. I'll just pause for a second there and see if anyone has any questions, or Justin, if there was anything that you would like to add to our challenges or highlights that we would want to include in next month's report, in our July report. Anything from you, Justin?
No, nothing off the top of my head there. Sounds good so far.
Any questions from the group or comments? Okay, any recommended additions or changes for the July report? Okay, great. That's good. Thanks, everyone.
And now we have the work plan.
And now the work plan.
Review. Yeah, this was Nicole. She presented this at our last HESCENT. I wasn't there, but I was able to watch it, the recording. So this is, again, a quick overview. And it's you, Catherine, again, right?
Yeah, yes, well, the hope was that folks had a chance to watch the video that was shared to see the full presentation. I was hoping for today we could just focus in on slides 4 and 5, where we talk about our actual work plan goals and targets. So for the purposes of this group, just reiterating what our access program goals are. So maintaining at least 430 shelter units across 15 sites, continuing our outreach capacity, so 10 organizations, 20 outreach workers, serving approximately 280 folks at any point in time. And then our housing navigation program, which supports 22 liaison positions across the system. Justin, would you be willing to share just a brief overview of what the liaison program is and does for folks that may be less familiar?
Sure. So yeah, the housing liaisons, we got some embedded in our shelters, some embedded in community partners. Basically, it is a program that is designed to help folks experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity, some short-term solutions, interventions, a short-term process to resolve the process of homelessness or housing insecurity for them, whether that be supporting them with move-in fees, eviction prevention fees, support for like household reunification if they can resolve their homelessness by moving in with a family or friend, offsetting the costs of utilities or groceries. Just the problem solving for a pretty quick resolution of the housing crisis for the household.
Thanks, Justin.
I'm gonna share one. We have Community Action is doing one of the housing liaisons with a Community Connect, and one success. We started already. Oh my gosh, it's July 10. And so we received a referral from a housing authority of a participant who hold a Section 8 voucher and unable to pay, obviously, the security deposit because you're probably in fixed income. So we support that mobility, to housing, supporting with the security deposit. So that was, to me, again, another success because it's somebody that have a voucher for a long time and then now is able to move in with support of a liaison that the housing authority has and with support of the financial assistance that we're doing. So that was great.
Thanks, Zoe. If we can go to the next slide. So for our housing program goals, these are our system-wide placement targets. So 1,400 eviction preventions. Shallow subsidy is a new program type that serves as a kind of a graduation step down program for rapid rehousing for folks who at the end of their rapid rehousing program time, still need just a little bit more assistance, not necessarily a deep subsidy, but just enough to kind of bridge that gap. We often see households that are paying more than 30 or 50% of their income towards their rent, and that places them at risk of homelessness. Kind of on an ongoing basis. However, most of the time they're kind of able to make it work, and with just a little bit of a subsidy would be able to maintain their housing more comfortably and maybe weather some emergencies. So that's the intent of the shallow subsidy. We're also looking at our housing graduation, so moving folks out of the more intensive case management services into subsidy only programs, thereby freeing up capacity in our permanent supportive housing programs. And then for new placements, we're looking at 450 new permanent supportive housing placements, 300 enhanced rapid rehousing placements or rapid rehousing placements, and then 200 move-in ready assistance placements. So these are folks who are going to be able to sustain their rent going forward, but need help with deposits and move-in costs. So total system-wide, we're looking at 900, ending homelessness for 950 new people next year while we continue to operate the programs as they are now.
It's amazing. What is a tenant and project base? What does that mean?
Sure, yeah. So it's permanent supportive housing can be site-based or it can be tenant-based, right? So it's a voucher and support services that a tenant can take to any apartment building, or it's site-based where the rent is subsidized and services are provided on site. that's the difference. They're both permanent supportive housing.
I mean, are you having luck with vouchers? Because it seems like, or what we're hearing is that, you know, it's not the voucher issue, it's actually finding housing once a voucher is issued. Is that also one of your biggest challenges? And maybe you had it up there and I glossed over it.
That's a great question. And there are folks who are in the work every day on the call that might be best able to answer it. We're hearing a little bit more that the market is tight. There are some populations that are significantly harder to find housing placements for. But that's not necessarily the greatest. I have not heard yet that that's our greatest challenge, but I would defer to Zoe, Lindsay, Marcia, Jeremy, the folks on the call who are in this work every day.
And Marcia has the hand raised.
Oh, Marcia.
Yeah, I had a question too, but to respond to what you just said, I have been surprised on an ongoing basis that availability of units wasn't more of a problem. It really hasn't been much of an issue. It's the problem that most frequently faces us is the number of barriers that the individual has to get them housed. Most troublesome is the history of criminal convictions. So that's where our trouble lies most of the time. And this is, it's related, but somewhat tangential. I was curious, mainly because I've heard in other meetings in the community that there are other project-based permanent supportive housing developments in process. And I was just curious if that's accurate and you know, what that means, where they are, etc. If you could talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. So Marcia, you are very faint, and I think folks are having a hard time hearing you, but I think what I heard you say is, for the answer to the first question, just to repeat it so everyone can hear, that availability of units isn't the challenge so much as navigating individual barriers that people have. And then second, a question about new site-based permanent supportive housing coming online. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So yes, we are continuing to grow our site-based permanent supportive housing portfolio. There are several properties that are in development. And I think that probably the best thing to do would be to have our SIR team, Jesse from our SIR team, come and give a presentation on that. But I think the next building to come online, well, let me back that up even a little bit. There are different levels of permanent supportive housing, site-based permanent supportive housing, where it's a portion of a building that is dedicated for PSH. And then there are buildings like Heartwood where it's 100% PSH. The next building that's coming online is Plambet Gardens, that will have some PSH units in it, and that is down in Tigard. Yes.
Tualatin.
Oh, I knew it. I was like, I know it's one of them.
It's our very first. We're super excited.
Congratulations, Megan. That is very exciting. And it's named after Doug Plambet, who was a founding member of the CPUP. Who is the provider. And then, but we'll have Jesse come and give a thorough presentation on what all is in the plans, if that's of interest to folks.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was also going to mention second one, Marcia said, like it's more on the engagement and support that a family or an individual or barrier that the units available. They are units, perhaps there are units available, but it takes probably a long time, you know, to get them ready because of the barriers, or lack of engagement. So when a family or individual has the support of a housing navigator or somebody that work with them through all of that they need to, I mean, you need to pass an application and help them with letters also, you know, to be able to be approved for the unit. It's more successful. That.
Thanks, Zoe. Okay, any other questions about our housing goals? Okay. Well, this is a little bit of a segue to our next topic. So, which is next steps, right? Is that where we're going next, Zoe?
Next step, system flow. Yes.
System flow. Okay. So I think we've been talking about this a lot in this group, and as the performance evaluation subcommittee, it makes sense. And one of our learnings through the LC3 process, and as we were watching to see how many folks that we were engaging with in encampments would be able to work through the system, there are multiple points of system performance that we need to be looking at. So we thought for today we would do an overview of what those different points are, and then kind of map out for our next series of meetings where we might dig into system performance in those different levels. So I have a little picture to share with you all. So these are, is it working? Can you see my screen? Okay, great. So these are the different areas where we have an opportunity, to evaluate the performance of our system, right? So it's outreach and access. How are we engaging with people? How are they getting in? Which relates to our coordinated entry and referral process. So how are we, as folks, what's the right way to say this? So as folks are accessing our coordinated entry, are we engaging with them? Are we keeping those referrals current? Are these folks that are here and ready to move forward when a housing opportunity becomes available? So we have that point. We have our coordinated entry referral. How long is it taking? Who is getting through? What are those processes looking like? How many referrals are being accepted? How many referrals are turning into program enrollments, which is our next step here. And then from there, how many of those program enrollments are turning into actual housing placements, and what's going on there. So questions exactly like what you were asking earlier, Rolanda, like what's keeping people who are enrolled in our programs from actually getting into housing, and what can we do to address that? And then from there, we have housing retention to be looking at. So how long are people staying in housing? Are they returning to homelessness later on? And then graduation, right? So in order to, as we were talking about when we're looking at our goals, where our system is no longer at a point where it's growing, it needs to be functioning efficiently, which means folks need to be exiting in order for us to get to the next person. And so that's where we need to be looking at how are we graduating people? What's stopping folks from being able to exit our programs? What is the role of the homeless services system in helping people secure long-term housing stability once they no longer need those intensive services, and how are we doing there? So these are the different areas that we'll want to be looking at in our performance evaluation over the course of the next year or so. And so I just kind of wanted to show that to you all, but also just pause for a moment and see if you have any kind of questions or if this is making sense to you all.
Have any qualitative goals been established to help determine how successful the flow is working?
Qualitative goals?
Yeah. For example, housing retention, those that if housing retention is not where it's at, what is causing the barriers? What is leading to displacement from housing? Is it, there could be a lot of different circumstances. So understanding that so we can solve the actual problem would be very helpful.
Yeah, okay. So what I'm hearing is like in addition to the data that might be showing us what's working well and what's not working well, wanting to have a sense of some of that qualitative data as well that might explain the why behind it.
Yeah, and that could be through, obviously when someone's being evicted, doing an eviction exit type of interview, what led to it, having a way to document that so that we can, so you guys can pull reports and get that to us. Yeah, I'm thinking out loud here, but yes.
Great. Marsha?
Yeah, I think this may be a dumb question, but is this the plan just for SHS funded services, or is this inclusive of COC funded services as well?
Yeah, this is system-wide, and this is really kind of part and parcel. So every year we do our system performance measures analysis, but there's just so much more to look at in each of those steps as we look through it. So this is kind of a deeper dive into our system performance measures. So system-wide, SHS, COC, and ESG as well.
Thank you.
I was wondering the same as Jeremy stated, like we know that there's a survey for participants that enter the system. Like we deploy questions to people that are accessing the coordinated entry. I am wondering if we are doing the same with people who are in a housing placement, who are already, in a house, who are graduating from a housing program. And also people who are in shelters, like, are we getting the voice from them to see what are the barriers that they are feeling is happening? As a provider, we can tell you, but, maybe also looking into what they think it's not working.
Yeah. I think there's, this is a common question on the COC NOFO. It's also a standard requirement that programs have some way of assessing client satisfaction or participant satisfaction in programs, but we don't actually have a way necessarily of bringing that together and looking at it at a systems level. So that sounds like something that this group might want to help build out and inform.
And it is an art to balance the amount of data we should be tracking versus asking for too much data. I know for my side, I love data because data is the way to look at how things are performing. But I know that when it comes to boots on the ground, that's the last thing they want to do. They're client focused and they want to do the work. And so coming back and having to enter data is very daunting for them. So yes, there's definitely got to be a good balance between what data is being tracked and what's not. But I do know that more data helps to solve the core issues.
Yeah, I love that. Like that balance of we need to have the data, but we also need to be really clear, one, what we're going to ask for, two, what are we going to do with it when we get it so that it's valuable and a good use of folks' time to enter it. Thank you. That's good feedback. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your faces, actually. I think the picture is nice, but it's not as good as being able to see you guys. Okay.
And I have a quick question. Do
Mhm.
you also, I mean, we talk a lot about who we served. Do you ever track people who you weren't able to serve and you had to turn away and the reasons?
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. We don't necessarily turn people away, right? So folks that are coming through coordinated entry, they just wouldn't get into a program, but they would just be kind of in a waiting pattern. And then folks, they become inactive in coordinated entry, and we don't necessarily have any data on why that
So
would be happening.
if they don't get into a program, is it usually because they don't meet some criteria? Or, I mean, they come through that coordinated, but is it like their income that could not qualify them for something? Or I'm just curious, I'm not necessarily sure I know what would not qualify someone, and then I'd be curious to see like how many people who come through that actually end up in sort of like the system that then just they go away because they become inactive or whatever word you used.
Yeah, I think there's two different ways that we could look at that, and that would be part of kind of a coordinated entry and program enrollment. Performance evaluation would be what are the referrals that are being declined and why, and we do collect that data. And then the other would be who are the folks that are becoming inactive due to lack of contact. Who are they? We may not be able to tell why, but we would definitely be able to tell who they are, what are the family types, household sizes, disability status, race, ethnicity, language, all of those things, and potentially find some nuggets of wisdom in there.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Any other things?
I just want to add, we do have another subcommittee, the lived experience subcommittee. And so through that, the initial folks that we have been able to talk to people about their experiences of why they sought services or didn't seek services, or whether it was useful and that kind of thing. But also I'd like to just throw it out there that we are looking to expand that group. And so if you have folks that you have worked with that you think could give that kind of feedback, or folks that you know, like you're saying, like you had to turn away for some reason, but you think would also be able to give feedback and you're still in touch with somehow, you know, just send them my way.
That's great. Thank you, Nadia. That, and a really good reminder to tell this group another subcommittee has stood up. So, you know, we've got this one, you guys were first, and then we have our equitable procurement subcommittee that is stood up that you were all, some of you were invited to participate in. And then those of you who didn't have conflicts of interest. And then our lived experience body just stood up. Would you mind giving them just kind of giving this group kind of a brief overview of what the lived experience body is and is going to be doing?
Yeah, so so the interesting thing there is that it is kind of broad, and I feel like I am still going through what are the different ways we can develop this group, or maybe have multiple groups. But initially we're starting off with just getting people together who have lived experience with homelessness. We initially were looking for people that just had it within our system and within Washington County. But a lot of that was slightly more challenging. A lot of the people that we started off with are people who are actually working in the system, but have had experience with homelessness outside of Washington County or outside of our system. And then we do have at least one member who's actively like living in the pods and able to give us feedback from that experience. And we had an initial conversation, so that was very introductory and just like trying to get first of all, people to feel comfortable and sharing their stories in a group like that. And that's where, you know, there's a little bit of thought about maybe we want to diversify the number of voices and get as much feedback as possible, but also have those meetings be more meaningful. So that might mean like maybe we break them down into smaller groups as opposed to like one larger group where we're just like surveying them. This is the one subcommittee that we are providing a small stipend to. So anyone who participates in the group gets a $50 gift card at this point. And the meetings are 4 times a year, like roughly once a quarter. And they go for about like an hour or 2. And it's also for that purpose, we don't record those meetings. So like a lot of these meetings, we do public meetings, and to comply with that, we just basically record the meetings and post them online. For this, we're treating it a little differently. So we want to kind of, again, give people the space to be vulnerable, but still recognize their need for privacy too. So balancing that with public law, meeting laws, what we've done is we are taking minutes. We're also, identifying members how they want to be identified for the purposes of posting notes. And then, so those are available on our website. I can share that if anyone wants to go through and see the notes from our last conversation.
Thank you, Nadia. And I think it's as all the rest of our subcommittees get stood up, it seems like, especially when we're looking for more of that qualitative data where we may want to engage with that group when we're assessing how we might capture that differently. So just as a reminder, that's there. They are our partners. Okay, so I think my last comment on kind of the picture was just that our plan is to go through these kind of in the order of the life cycle and be bringing that information to you over our next series of meetings about performance in these different areas. Does that seem reasonable to go in order of the life cycle, or would you prefer to dig into some specific areas first? Hearing no strong feelings, we'll go with life cycle. Sound good? All right, great. Back to you, Zoe.
That sounds good. Assuming everybody understands, we can probably also give an overview of how the cycle works, and where those points start. All right, I have a minute before. It was nice to see you all. Enjoy the warm weather, and remember, it was very cold, so not complain too much. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.